The assistant knelt as broken glass shattered near his face. The Duke of the South, no, Seth, glared at him with a drunken, furious expression. She was the only bait to find him, but you let her be taken just like that? I'm sorry. I had no choice. His Royal Highness the Crown Prince arrived. Why did the Crown Prince suddenly appear? She claimed he was a friend of the ladies. Ha! You believe that? I've never seen the Crown Prince associating with any ladies. The assistant bowed his head in silence. Now that the bait has escaped, he'll disappear again. Seth raked his fingers roughly through his dark blue hair. Shall we kidnap Miss Malcolm again? The Crown Prince has gotten involved. We'll have to watch her for a while. Then what do we do? His lover is in the capital, so he won't leave. Place some monitors on the lady. Yes, understood. Seth closed his eyes to organize his chaotic thoughts. Hey, you. Not that way. Eubis, who had been riding in the wrong direction, pulled his horse's reins and rode toward Handers. Wasn't this the way? You fool, are you going to keep rushing without even knowing the route? Handers frowned and scolded Eubis. Why did I bring you along with this evidence? Though troubled by his belated regret, Eubis argued that since he had made the discovery, he could explain it better. That's because we need to hurry. Eubis took control of his horse again and urged it forward. Then stop rushing off randomly and just follow me. Fine. The two black horses ran as fast as the wind, as if sensing their owner's urgency. They were heading to the Western Duke's residence in the capital. However, the capital's roads were crowded with people, making it impossible to maintain their speed. Why are there so many people? It's the capital. We're almost there. The Duke's residence came into view from afar. The two men pulled their reins and stopped in front of the main gate. Handers leaped from his horse and seized the arm of a servant near the entrance. Where is His Excellency the Duke? The startled servant was about to respond when Butler Canelum emerged. Handers? What are you doing here? Butler. Where are His Excellency the Duke and Lady Marin? This is an urgent matter. They are currently at the hunting festival. Hunting festival? Eubis asked from behind, his voice sharp with surprise. Butler Canelum noticed their unusual demeanor and quickly ordered a servant. Guide these two to the hunting festival grounds. Yes, sir. As the servant began to move, Handers grabbed him. It's urgent. Take my horse and come with me. Understood. Handers placed the servant on his horse, bowed to Butler Canelum, and swiftly departed from the Duke's residence once more. Watching the two men leave with such urgency, deep wrinkles formed on Butler Canelum's forehead. Under a clear blue sky, golden banners announcing the hunting festival fluttered in the breeze. Hundreds of tents had been erected before the green forest behind the imperial palace. It was a hunting festival that any noble could attend. However, the size and color of each tent varied according to social status. The imperial family's tents were gold, the four ducal families were blue, the marquises were green, and those below were white. Eastern Duchess Edina, seated in her blue tent, surveyed her surroundings. The nobles who met her gaze waved politely in greeting before quickly dispersing. The emperor's surprise hunting festival had been warmly welcomed by the nobility. It was an opportunity for them to socialize freely without worrying about appearances. Meanwhile, the emperor sat on a high platform and observed the nobles spread out below. The imperial faction and the aristocratic faction were clearly moving in separate groups. The emperor lowered his gaze and studied the scene. He had discovered that the aristocratic faction was secretly maneuvering behind the scenes, but perhaps there was nothing they could actually accomplish. Even if they tried to manipulate the weak crown prince, things would never go as they wanted. Because that was how he had raised his son. If you brought the imperial faction or the aristocratic faction together and gave them something to devour, they would focus entirely on the prey. That was the nature of nobility. The emperor's golden eyes flashed as they fixed on one spot. The Duke of the West and his fiancée were seen walking together. Noble young men wearing swords received handkerchiefs from elegantly adorned ladies. In one area, children of aristocratic families were playing ball, while elderly noblewomen gathered together, chatting with teacups in one hand and fans in the other. It seems like all the nobles have gathered. Is this normal for a hunting festival? Marin asked as she surveyed the massive crowd. This is strange. What is? There are too many people. Gerard spoke in a low voice, carefully scanning their surroundings. Olive. Assess the situation. Yes, Your Excellency. Olive, who had been following Dia, quickly slipped away. Marin glanced at Dia, who was now left without her escort. Dia, are you all right? Marin had been walking beside Gerard partly to draw attention away from Dia, the future crown princess, but she couldn't deflect all the stares. The curious, critical, and jealous glances of the nobles rained down on Diameter. Don't worry. I can handle this. Dia straightened her shoulders proudly and accepted their scrutiny with composure. As expected, the future crown princess was not just anyone. Marin smiled slightly as she looked at Dia with wonder and pride. Meanwhile, Somas sat inside his blue tent, watching the Duke of the West and his fiancée walk side by side. Naturally, his thoughts drifted to the private audience he'd had with the Emperor a few days prior. Somas stared expectantly at the Duke of the West and his fiancée. Whatever the Emperor had prepared, exposing her abilities here would certainly be a great ordeal for them. He smiled broadly, feeling as if the frustration that had been building from his failure to find Smith was finally being relieved. Marin's eyes widened as she entered the blue tent. Expensive chairs, elaborate decorations, and luxurious carpets filled the space. Wasn't the hunting festival only announced today? Yes. Yet they're spending this much money? Marin spoke with a slightly weary look in her eyes. That's what an emperor who loves to show off does. A flash of contempt for the emperor passed through Gerard's gray eyes. Dia, listening beside them, also looked around with a disappointed expression. At that moment, Olive returned from observing the situation outside. He made eye contact with Gerard and reported immediately. All the nobles of the capital have gathered. Why? Apparently, His Majesty's invitation was sent to everyone. Gerard's eyes darkened in thought. The Emperor's invitation was precious, so much so that only the 4 dukes received them regularly. Because it was so rare, simply receiving an invitation from the Emperor was considered an honor for any family. But this valuable thing had been distributed to all the nobles? It was no wonder every noble in the capital had attended. An ominous feeling crept over him.